What's going on, Patreon? Welcome back to another Patreon exclusive podcast. I've got a good friend and guest on here today, Zane. We'll bring him on here in a second, but we're going to talk about when to fish for big speckled trout. Obviously, the best time to fish for big speckled trout is whenever you get the chance to fish, but there's a lot of little things that you can look at and kind of follow patterns to figure out, if you're choosing your times to go. You can up your odds and maybe have a better chance of catching big fish. So that's what we're going to talk about today here on Patreon. I want to thank you all so much for being over here on Patreon, and we'll get right into it with Mr. Zane. What's up, man?
What's going on, dude?
Nothing much, man. You got to show everybody that mullet before we get started. Let's see it.
Oh, dude, can you like slow mo this?
I don't know how to slow mo on Skype. I wish I could. That's awesome. That is awesome. Well, cool. Well, let's get right into it. We'll talk about when to fish for big trout. So when I ask you that question, just like straight up, if I just called you, I was like, hey, if I want to fish for big trout, when should I go? What would be like your quickest answer? Like your
At night.
At night. Okay, sweet.
Night. But I mean, also, that's a loaded question. But at night.
Yeah.
More or less.
What do you think it is about fishing at nighttime that allows you to target those bigger fish or maybe catch bigger fish?
I think trout, for the most part, are feeding through the night anyways, but especially on your bigger moons.
Yeah, like a full and a new.
Yeah, like the 3 or 4 days surrounding a full moon and the 3 or 4 days surrounding a new moon. I think it's just like all night.
Yeah.
No matter where you're fishing, I think, and tarpon, the same thing.
Yeah. You got to think that all that light from that moon, it just helps silhouette bait, helps them see at night, gives silhouette, So.
Yeah, and if you go out there at night on those big moons, new moon or full moon, and you take a headlamp and you're out there with a headlamp, or you're using some sort of like artificial light source, if you take that away, your ability to kind of see what's going on is improved. Like on those bigger moons, like if you have a light, you're like hurting yourself. You can't really
for
see.
Sure.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think it's just something about those moon phases, especially on our coast, that have a lot to do, I think, with like the migration of speckled trout up and down the Carolina coast. I think the moon phases have a lot to do with that. So I think fishing those can help you be successful.
Yeah, for sure. So, talking of fishing at night, there's so many questions that come to mind, and I get asked about this a lot. And I've actually been asked to do like a night fishing podcast. We won't do that this time, but is there a specific time at night that you think's better? Like I know there's always like that topwater bite for trout, like late in the evening, first thing in the morning, like those low light conditions, or even getting out there at dark and fishing. What does a night of trout fishing look like to you? Because I don't do much night fishing. I know you go quite a bit and fish at night.
For me, it's like I try to pair like when I would normally go fish these spots in the day around the tide, and then I go, with that. Like I go with like, okay, this spot is normally good at a mid-incoming tide for trout, and I just go do that at night. I mean, it's really not rocket surgery. It's about having the confidence to go do it. Like having the confidence to sit there and fish that same rip that you would fish in the daytime for trout can be like can be draining sometimes, especially if you don't feel like you're in the zone. Like it's all about like believing that your bait is where it needs to be.
Yeah.
And I have buddies that I talk to daily about like what's going on and what are they doing and how are they catching them. And a friend of mine went up the other night and I think he fished for 4 hours and caught one fish, but that fish was 8.5 pounds. So it's like, he didn't go out and kill him, but he went out and did what he was trying to do. He's trying to catch a big one.
Yeah, I feel like so often when you hear of, those days where people catch big ones, it's like they don't necessarily catch a ton of fish, but they catch, a big fish. Or if they catch a lot of fish, it's like a lot of big fish. You know what I mean? Like guys will get on bites that really focus on like when to fish. These guys that I know that catch the biggest fish of the year, I think about Richard Gilligan a lot. Like everybody knows that he catches big trout around here, and
At his farm pond.
at his farm pond, and a lot of it has to do with he's choosing when to go fish. Like it's not that he fishes a ton or that he fishes the exact right spot. It's that he knows where to be, but more importantly, he knows when to be there. So, and I had this. I talked to this guy up on from the Neuse River. This was last year, not on a podcast, but just chatting on the phone. And he had a day where he had 6 citation fish, like a 9-pounder, a 7-pounder, 2 5s, and a 4.5-pounder, or something crazy like that. But it was all in one little zone, but at the right time.
It's definitely even not even in one little zone. It's definitely I'm fishing down here, and I'm talking to people who are fishing in Lockwood Folly, and I'm talking to people who are fishing in the Neuse River, and I'm talking to people that are fishing the New River and Surf City area. And if I go out one night and have success, there's I'm talking catch a big fish, or there's multiple big fish caught in my group of people I'm fishing with. 9 times out of 10, I'll message those guys, and it's like another positive report.
For sure.
It's we caught them. Like everyone caught them, just because it is such a atmospheric and
pressure, moon phase, tide, all that stuff.
All of it matters, man. Yeah.
And it's funny, man, because it's obviously tides are different in different areas. So the tide, I feel like, can, depending upon where you are, can be a very important part of it. But can also be not an important part of it really at all.
Yeah.
Just depending upon the location you're at. It's funny too talking about how fish are synced to these things, because it's like I think about albie fishing, and it'll be like me, maybe you're out there, my buddy Alan's out there, and we're spread up between Carolina Beach and Topsail. And we're always texting, and so often I'll be like, hey, it just got real good, it got real good here, and then Alan's 12 miles up the beach, and he's like, yeah, it just got real good here, and you're like, oh, it's good down here. And then it'll shut down, and I'll text them and be like, hey, it's shut down, don't come down here. Like, oh, it just shut down for me too. Like, these fish are all feeling the same. I don't know what it is. They're all linked in the spirit.
A lot of times with the albies, I feel like it's like whatever angle the sun starts hitting those baits, where they can just see them from a mile away.
Yeah, that's probably what it
is. Yeah, man. And another point. I said before, I try to fish the tides that are good during the daytime. Sometimes in certain spots, I'm thinking of one spot that I will not mention the name of, but you can go and fish that spot in the daytime at an outgoing tide. I'll just say that, outgoing tide in the daytime, and catch when the bite is on, which it is now. You can catch more or less, get a hit every cast with the DOA.
During the day, and during the night, the same thing. You go out and at nighttime, same tide, you can catch 5 or 6, 10 nice fish. But I've just been speaking with a couple other guys who fish this spot. They always catch their biggest fish on the opposite tide at that spot. Like, they'll go out to that spot and won't expect to catch 15, 20 trout. They're going out that spot expecting either catch no trout or a 7-pound, 8-pound fish. Yeah.
So I guess that probably has to do with they're feeding on different things. Those little trout are feeding on those shrimp, flushing out, and those bigger trout are facing out, probably eating spots or something like that, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it's funny how that works that way, man. And it's crazy how you can fish a spot. Like, I think of later winter spots where fish are kind of schooled up and they'll be in different sizes.
Sure.
And you can fish a spot and fish a spot and fish a spot and catch little fish, and then you get that right weather pattern.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you go and fish it and you catch 2 or 3 really good fish. It's funny how those fish will feed, on that certain weather pattern. I also think like the 2 things that kind of unlock a big fish in trout fishing is I feel like nighttime and fishing around a moon, or I guess it's 3 things, or fishing around a weather pattern. So
definitely a weather pattern, man.
So what would you say is the weather pattern that people should be looking for as far as when to go target big trout? They got two haul passes for the month.
Yeah.
They want to go catch a big trout, and they're trying to decide when to go.
I say like a lot of people feel a cold front coming through. Lame. A lot of people will feel a cold front coming through, and they'll think like, or like a storm or whatever. They'll think like, oh, it's trouty. Like they've always heard people say like, oh, there's a cold front coming through, or there's a storm coming through. Like, let's go fish today. And I think they always make the move a little too late. On me, like when there's a big weather system coming through, like what's pushing through here right now,
Right.
I think the like evening into the night before that blow starts or before that rain starts. And I've definitely caught them in the rain, and I've definitely caught them during the front. But I think like it's that prefrontal,
Definitely.
like 10 hours before there's something, the pressure is dropping. It's starting to kind of look nasty up north.
It's like fishing that time where it feels completely normal outside to when you're in a t-shirt, and then while you're fishing you're putting a jacket on and then putting a rain jacket on. Like that is the bite time, it feels like.
Yeah, that's when you get them. Yeah. Sure. No, I mean like the bigger fish that I've caught throughout the years has always been like, I mean, you can do the nighttime, like, and definitely, I don't know, definitely it doesn't have to be prefrontal, especially this time of year when the water temperature is still good and you have a lot of fish moving through here that aren't necessarily like settling here.
Right.
But the bigger fish that I've caught have always been like I'm looking at my phone and like I have that barometer app on my phone, and like I'll see that like it's supposed to just slam, and I'm like, well, we got to go try something, and I'll just go wherever I had planned to go that day. But normally, as long as there's fish in the area, they're going to be chewing on that drop.
Definitely. Yeah, you went out and whacked someone in your duck boat the other day, just running your duck boat around, and it was that time frame, and you're just rolled into a spot drifting around with a single rod, and we're catching them. So yeah, that's super cool, man. It's cool that you can pattern them. It makes it fun. It makes it less. Like, I think that's what's so addicting to me about fishing is like understanding the when and the why and the where, and when it really boils down to it, it's like baits are important. What you're throwing is important, but it's not really that important. It's not as important as knowing when to be and where to be and why to be there.
Some of the older guys that I've learned how to trout fish from, the stuff they throw, like you would if you were to see them and not know who they were, and they're throwing stuff like the jigs and like rub tail stuff, and they're throwing, you would just be like, this guy's like lost it. Like, what was he doing? And he's just whacking them
straight out the 1990s.
Yeah, I mean honestly, there one guy has a couple like wooden baits that he like loves to throw that are just like barely subsurface, and it's just like if you would see that tied on some guy's rod like sitting up on the beach or whatever, you'd be like, what the
yeah, this guy's wasting his time.
Wasting his time, man. He's just got a pile of trout in his cooler.
I always think that sometimes when I'm running and there's someone way out in the open somewhere set up fishing, and I'm like, God, they either have no clue what they're doing, or they're on like some top secret stuff.
I've learned to be more absorbing of those guys that I think don't know what's going on.
Yeah, for sure.
Sometimes those guys do know what's going on. It's good to just kind of like just put a mental note. I always like anytime I see someone like just randomly sitting out in the ocean, like I'll just like scroll where I think they are on my
drop a pen.
on my Simrad. This may be dirty, but whatever. I'll just scroll to where I think they are and just drop a pin, and I'll make sure a mental note to like when I get to where I'm going to pull up my Navionics and to see if like is there anything there. Like is there anything like a niche or like a little, because you can see the bottom content. I mean, it's helped me find some things. For sure.
Yeah, it's I think that I've heard some funny stories that I can't share on here, but some funny stories about that happening, and knowing some buddies that were fishing out of John boats and just overlooked. It's pretty funny. But yeah, so it is. I mean, I would say trout fishing more than anything is being at the right place at the right time. And there's a lot of right times. Like we could be talking about the right tide or the right weather or the right moon phase. So in your opinion, what is like the perfect storm of perfect conditions?
I would say for where I'm thinking a mid to outgoing tide at 2 o'clock in the morning, right around moonrise, and a storm's hitting at 6 in the
Yeah.
morning. I mean, I don't know. That would be the perfect time. It never happens like that, and you got to go. Like the one thing is like I'll say this, and I've a couple years back, I was more selective with when I went on things like that. But you're living life, man, and you're not always going to be able to um, pick that perfect time that you know is coming, and you're definitely not going to catch them if you don't go.
Right.
And I've definitely went when I thought like, oh, this is probably going to be a bust, and just whacked them.
For sure.
So I'll say, you got to go to catch them anyway. But if you were to pick, that would be the perfect storm, I believe.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm with you on
And
that.
I've also been sitting in trout holes, and it's bluebird skies with a high barometer, and nothing's right with the moon phase, and there's dudes just like dragging in 25, 26-inch trout left and right. I mean, there's definitely a fall migratory bite to not turn your nose up to and try to figure it out. And that kind of happens throughout the day. I mean, those fish are in there gorging themselves on whatever mullet and shrimp are
Right.
flushing
Right.
those particular spots, and they're making their way south. And I don't know if land based or whatever. Don't don't sleep on just surf fishing, man. A lot of people. Uh, a lot of people think you have to be able to get back to this secret trout spot that only gets fit, but like
A lot of big
I
fish caught in the surf.
the biggest fish I've ever seen in person, the biggest fish that I've ever seen in person, probably times 3 or 4, has all been pulled out of the surf.
Yeah.
This is just like we have to accept that we're just most of the good trout are just passing by our inlets,
Yeah.
are just passing by our creeks. And, so like finding a good slough in the right time, right tide, and figuring it out, and you can really go out. And I know, I mean, there's definitely specific trout spots in the surf that have been historic trout spots that you'll have 20 head of guys out there plugging in the middle of the night. But there's also guys that I know who just like kind of stumbled into their own and they have it to themselves. So I would say like definitely this time of year I would encourage going out and chucking a mirror lure in the surf, and you might surprise yourself. And not to mention there's schools of drum out there right now.
Yeah.
So you can stumble into those too, and it can be a great time.
For sure. It's every nice trout has to swim down the beach. They're not migrating down the waterway. So
Sure.
it's a great. That's something I wish I could do more of is surf fishing. Put the waders on and go catch trout in the surf. I mean, there's nothing. That's something I want to do with my son when he gets older.
Yeah.
Because right now it's hard to take the time to go at night and go surf fish and whatnot.
It's just something special about it. I think it compares to like a mountain. Like it's our mountain stream, it's our
Right,
like just
right.
walk out the back door and go pepper lure a little bit.
And like potential at something awesome.
Awesome,
So,
yeah.
yeah, that's cool. You do much more of that. Have you had any big nights in the surf yet this year?
It's coming. I think this north wind we're getting now is like what we've been needing.
Yeah, I think everything's going to be pretty loaded up after this. I mean, people are out there fishing now and catching trout for sure, but once we get a little bit more manageable to fish, where the wind's not blowing 50, it's going to be easier.
I had some clients the other day that it was like at the beginning of this, and we caught them. Like we caught some fish, but it was just like there was like 4 spots between Topsail and Southport that were fishable.
Yeah, it's like you have to pretty much have a downwind bank because or directly upwind and close to it. So any of that throwing like crosswind to a bank when it's blowing 30 is impossible to trout fish, unless you fish popping cork. That's about the only thing you get away with.
Yeah, I didn't even. You know what? I need to put that in my arsenal better. I know a bunch of guys who hang a DOA under a popping cork and smoke them.
Yeah.
I just never think to do that.
Yeah, I don't either. I think so much that DOA bite's based off of why or how how it sinks.
Yeah.
But if they made a DOA, someone needs to make a hook for the DOA where the eye is in the middle of the body, above
Yeah.
it.
Well, they have a marker. Let me look it up.
You know what I mean? So when you're just letting it hang, that shrimp is just
I know
parallel.
I
So it
know
looks like it's
exactly what you
floating.
mean. I'm gonna show you.
I've seen a treble hooked shrimp before. Does DOA make one?
Oh, trust me. Look.
Tell me what it's called. I'll pull it up on here and I can drop it onto the screen.
Let me look.
It's called marker what?
Hold on. Let me pop. Let me. Find it. Okay.
Let's see. But yeah, so what I was saying to Zane is a lot of times the reason I turn away from fishing a shrimp plastic under a cork is because that eye's at the top of the body, and so when you let that thing sit still for a long time, the shrimp is just hanging vertically underneath it, as opposed to that thing's pretty sick.
They work too, man. You know where
Back
these
it up
things.
just a little bit. Who makes it?
Marker 54. It's a
Marker.
popping cork shrimp.
Marker.
Is what it's called.
It's a hard bait.
It's a hard bait, but you can also, um, like when the trout get in those like 15 foot of water winter patterns,
Yeah.
you can put some Procure on that thing and literally just vertical lob jig them and they'll eat it.
Really?
Tie that thing into the middle of that shrimp and it just like looks like a shrimp,
Just hopping.
like yeah, hopping.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
Has a rattle on it
Marker
too.
54
Yeah.
shrimp. I'm gonna buy some of those. I've never seen that before.
They well,
But still, I think if someone made a hook for a DOA shrimp that you could rig through the middle, that'd be awesome.
yeah. You know what, dude? They have you, have you ever the Z-Man popping mullet or whatever, the soft plastic topwater that Z-Man
Yeah,
makes?
yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
If you look up how to rig treble hook on popping mullet, we used to catch the before Florence. That was a really good bait for the bigger striper, like to get that 7-inch soft plastic topwater. They would eat it really good.
Yeah.
But a striper misses treble hooks. So having a weedless, I mean, they didn't get it much, so you can drop a treble off of that. I bet you could drop a treble off of that shrimp somehow.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. No, I think that would be pretty huge. I wonder if you could turn the hook. I'm trying to look now and see if I've got a DOA shrimp in here. If you could turn the hook around backwards inside of a DOA shrimp where the eye was coming out of its back and the hook was coming out of its face. So where it would, like, if it was hanging, it wouldn't go vertical. It would kind of hang normal. I'll have to play around with that and see.
Yeah.
Or if you put a jig hook in there and ran it through there backwards. Like the right length jig hook.
Those Mr. Twister like body hooks, like where like it's like the you have the eye of the hook and then like the weight is back here and goes almost all the way to the start of the bend of the hook, like the center weight hooks. Those work really good for like jerk baits, fishing jerk baits or jerk shads, flukes, style baits.
Yeah.
In current, like you would fish a DOA, like just drifting that thing through the current, putting that weight like actually into the bait itself allows it to fall the same way.
Gotcha.
A DOA.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
I did some playing around last year when all you guys bought up all the DOAs.
Yeah. DOAs are hard to find. I went ahead and bought about $300 worth of them this summer when they were all in stock.
Yeah. Same. This spring, when I was catching the trout pretty good this spring, I was about to order like a couple packs just like to get me until the spring bite stopped. I was like, you know what? No.
Have you fished the straight clear one? It's like a little milky but clear.
Yeah.
That's a pretty awesome one too. I never fished that until this year, and I think they eat it really good. Doesn't show up quite as well as the red flake, but they eat it.
A couple spots that those work better for me is like when really clear water, ocean stuff. When you're letting, instead of fishing You'll probably know exactly what I'm talking about when I say it. But instead of fishing a current rip, you're kind of just fishing a wash,
Yeah.
and where you cast that bait in, just kind of let it wash.
Mm-hmm.
Works pretty good.
Yeah, for
Good.
sure. I had a really good bite the other day in a wash. I don't know where I was throwing the DOA shrimp directly up current to the current and just kind of
Yeah.
reeling it and keeping that line tight as it kind of came back to me. Little pop every once in a while, but really just letting it down. That's where I had that 25 the other day. Was it just
Nice.
fishing it straight up current in a wash with the red flake DOA shrimp? I'd say, that
Fishing the dangle, man. Fishing the dangle.
fishing the dangle. That's one of the things that bums me out about the duck hunting now, and I think next year I might push my starting of my duck hunting a little bit further back into the season just to get some trout fishing until like mid-November. You know what I mean? I can go do it myself, but now with a kid, it's like it's really hard to go hunt in the morning, come back, and then go fish the afternoon. I think I could probably get away with it once or twice a week, but you don't want to be gone that long. But it's just a bummer to miss a lot of the trout fishing this time of year because it's one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah, I think. Well, I think next year you won't really have. I think they're going to dictate your start for you, right? They're shortened.
Well, did I tell you that I found out what the? Well, we don't even need to talk about this on the podcast, but we'll talk about this afterwards. Yeah, maybe we'll start later. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But all right, tell me this. We'll wrap this podcast up with this. But give me your top 3 big trout baits. If you're fishing for a big trout, not numbers. What are you gonna have tied on? You got 3 rods that you can switch between. Let's hear them.
DOA shrimp.
DOA specific color, red flake.
Red flake, but you know what? I feel like a lot of times that's just a confidence thing for me.
Yeah, I agree.
You know what? I always tell myself I'm going to next time I get on like just a hammer bite where you're catching them every cast to like tie on like one of the crazy colors that they make and just try it and just to see if they're going on that profile or that color.
Yeah.
And I've never actually done it because when there's a big good trout bite going off, you just want to like.
Yeah, exactly. You just want to get thumped every couple seconds.
Yeah, so like people sleep on it as a big trout bait, but I always want to throw it the DOA shrimp.
Yeah.
One knocker.
One knocker's a great bait. Top water play.
Yeah. And
By
then
heading.
I like the TT or the 52 MR, and I like it in a dark color. And I don't think like or like a high contrast color, like purple or the 808, or even like I have a couple that are just like clear bodies with the mirror in them.
Yeah.
And I think that is the colors of those mirror lures is definitely does matter. Like I've had examples of like opposite ways where I'm throwing the dark purple one and I'm getting at night and getting bit every single cast, and my buddy is throwing the white with the orange or red head and is not getting a single bite. And then I've also had that opposite. And I think with a big moon, bright moon, bright moon, white, chartreuse, like something along that lines.
Yeah.
And then with a new moon, you want 808, purple, the dark. They make a dark green mullet looking thing.
Yeah.
And I think that like you match the lighting better. Like
Yeah.
if you have that high contrast white bait coming through in a new moon, it just like it looks not what their world looks like down there.
For sure. And in the same sense, when you fish a really dark bait that's silhouetted hard when it's bright outside at night, it's just so much more natural. And I feel like it could even look bigger, bigger to a fish where maybe not, but.
Who knows?
My buddy, who is a really, really good tarpon guide, he does the same thing during the day, where at low light he's fishing darker colors. He's fishing all Pallola worm flies, but he's fishing dark colors, maroons, purples, blacks, and this is still during the daytime. This is but low light, early morning. Then middle of the day he's fishing pinks and chartreuses and bright reds and stuff like that, where more light, more color. You think about when you get low light in the morning and you're like, we were in the swamp yesterday morning. Low light, you look around, everything just looks gray and different shades of like black and brown. Then you get bright light and all those colors. The more light you have are more visible. You can pick up on color and whatnot. So it totally makes sense. Their eyes are different than ours, but I think in that sense they still work the same way. So if you had those perfect conditions you were talking about tonight, and you could only take one bait, what would it
be?
TT. What and what color? If it's going to be
new moon, I'm taking purple.
Purple. I like it.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we're going to wrap this one up. Thanks again for being supporters over here on Patreon. Zane, thanks for coming on. We're going to do another podcast that's going to be a public podcast right now about where to catch big trout. So we've talked about when over here, the time, which I think is way more important than where. Or maybe equally as important. Equally as important.
It's important.
Equally as important. But check that out over on YouTube. And we'll talk to y'all soon. Later.